So we have like 15 minutes for three of us. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening from Indonesia. My name is Dewi Sutejo. I just would like to brief introduction because the main presenter is my colleague Muhammad Husen, and Pak Sulaiman is our representative from Pari Island. Yeah, actually Husen and Pak Sulaiman will share a little bit more about how one example of how extractivism occur in small island in the name of tourism, or even we claim or conservation or protected zone, and how communities struggle and do the community mapping as counter, like May said. This is okay.
Pak Sulaiman, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we would like to highlight about the community mapping as a counter mapping, and how extractivism facilitated by the government through the space policy. In Indonesia, we have like one terminology, but the government spatial planning. Yeah, with this document include the map, of course. All the allocation land just plan include the allocation for investor. Yeah, it's involved the tourism one case. In Pari case, actually the document, the preparation, the substansi, the existing draft didn't involve fishermen communities, and even eliminating fishermen living in the coastal area and small island in May said Thousand Island, we call Kepulauan Seribu. So actually the case, the conflict have been occurred like about 30 years ago, and then how the investor claim the island, and the community must leave the island in the name of tourism. So Husen and the team from JKPP, but we also work as a coalition with the network in Indonesia, a national network called Save Pulau Pari, work together with the communities to advocacy, to make the map and communicate by the as evidence and talk with the government about the community claim by the through the map. Yeah, this map show the proposed joining map Pari Island community is finally accommodated by the Jakarta government, and in document spatial planning, with the change from seascape tourism zone to the cultivation zone. But this is a long story and long struggle from the community, but it's not still final, because there is a still homework, and there is still struggle again. And then Husen will tell more deep about this case. Yeah, and then Pak Sulaiman also will sharing more deep about this case. Thank you. I will give the floor to the Husen.
Halo semuanya, selamat malam untuk Indonesia dan selamat siang untuk di luar ya. Perkenalkan saya.
Good afternoon to anybody else. I'm from JKPP, and today I'm going to explain about the situation in Pari Island. May I share my screen? I'm going to share my screen.
Sudah muncul?
Okay, you see it? Okay. Can you make it full?
Okay.
So we can. Okay.
Semuanya,
So everyone, this is a picture of Pari Island. So if you visit Pari Island, this is how it looks like. So I'm going to explain what is happening in Pari Island, how the overlapping and the land use in Pulau Pari Island until now that the people are still fighting. It hasn't been resolved yet. So the local community is the main actor in the participatory mapping. So when we do the participatory mapping, the local community is the main actor because they understand, they know the potentials, the situation in their own area. So when we do the participatory mapping, the local community should be involved actively in the process. But there are also other aspects, for example, the special planning from the government, the SJWP3K or the special planning from the government. It's a bit problematic and it caused a lot of conflict in which the regional regulation draft from the Jakarta government does not didn't involve the local communities, the fisher folk communities in the making process. Well, in reality, these communities, the fishermen, the locals, they're the one who know better, who understand the geographical condition of the area. Also, it leads to the displacement of people, the fishermen, where it affects people who already lived there for decades before the special planning exists. They have to leave because of the special planning map from the government. So, and this situation put the fishermen in a very vulnerable position to criminalization and other forms of violence by the state, by the government. So that's why, drawing on that situation, the community in Pari Island decided to do participatory mapping.
oleh masyarakat terkait tata
So
guna
the map that I am going to share, these are the maps that 100% made by the Pari people. And then so after the participatory mapping is done, they proposed it to the local government in Jakarta with hope that this map could be acknowledged legally by the government. And this took really long process. If I'm not mistaken, the mapping process is in 2017 and it's still ongoing until now. Because we are still trying to make the Jakarta government acknowledge it in the special planning, their special planning. So what's the relation between Pari Island community with the coastal ecosystem? 95% of the Pari Island people, they are really dependent to coastal and marine resources. This is one of the examples of the overlapping right ownership map in Pari Island. As we can see here, the conflict have been going for over than 30 years. It started in the early 1980s. On the blue line, it's the building right by the investors to develop tourism in the area. Even in reality, in those blue lines, there already exists people live there. So that's the reason why the people are, until today, they're still struggling, they're still trying to reclaim their ownership to the land.
Sudah ada beberapa perusahaan yang sudah
Um,
masuk dan
then
sempat
there are also several companies that entered the island and put made claims that it's their right for them to own the land,
bahwa lahan tersebut
while
oleh perusahaan dan
actually the people, they have no acknowledgement that the land is already owned by the companies and the government. And this is the
Pulau Pari,
zonation of land use map. The brown one is the Pari Island. These are it consisted of small islands. There are also the private island too. Maybe it belongs to private sector. So these are also
tempat budidaya atau tempat
the zone that
ikan berkumpul di mana masyarakat biasanya
the blue one is where the fish gathers, where the fish is gathered. That's where the fisher folk, the fishermen caught their fish, go there, and these are the zonation map, that are made based on the collective decision of the local communities. There are 5 zones: the administrative zones, cultivation zones, the yellow one, the conservation zones, the green one, the small fisherman or traditional fisher folk zones, the blue, the light blue, and the purple one is the community tourism zone.
Nah, ini peta zonasi ini yang
This zone map
DKI Jakarta untuk
is the one that the communities have been fighting for to be acknowledged in the special planning of the Jakarta government. This is the government zonation map. So the blue one is the area for sea tourism in which communities are prohibited entering the area, because so like the fishermen, they could not caught their fish, they cannot catch their fish inside the area because it's tourism area. And the orange one, it's an area for coastal and small island tourism. But as we all know, at the end of the day, it was going to be managed by the private sector, so it's going to be a very disadvantaged local community. These are the overlaps between the government map and the community's map. So based on the participatory mapping by the community, the cultivation zone is the biggest one, while based on the government map, the biggest area is the tourism zone. So we can see how the local communities are, they're very strictly prohibited entering the area. So they lost wide amount of area for fishing, which, as we all know, is their main source of livelihood. So it shows that there is a contradiction of zoning. The hope is that the cultivation zone that is decided by based on the participatory mapping can be acknowledged into the special planning of the Jakarta government. So the fishermen's work activity played as a support role for the tourism activities in the zone based on Article 40, Paragraph 1. So the living space for the fishermen is very little, it's very small if we see the government zoning map. So these are pictures of foreign tourists that visit Pari Island. These are several examples. waters. The fifth picture is a private island, which based on the data information from the locals, before this becomes a private island, fishermen could enter freely and catch the fish inside of the area. After a few years, we tried to propose to the government the mapping that was done by the people, and it got accepted and finally got legally acknowledged in special planning map by the Jakarta government. So the previous area for sea tourism is now has now become the fish farming zone or the cultivation zone. But sadly, unfortunately, the pink zone here, it is still an area for sea tourism. So it is still possible for private sector to take advantage of it and take claim of it. So as you can see from the previous stories, the participatory mapping is already accepted by the government, but we are still fighting for the pink area, the sea tourism area, to be turned into a cultivation zone so that the fishermen, the fisher folk, and the local communities could have a bigger fishing zones, which, as we all know, is their livelihood. So until today, the communities and the NGOs like Walhi Nasional, Walhi Jakarta, LBH, they're still fighting to assert their rights. I think that's all from me. Thank you. But now we have Pak Sulaiman Katur. He's a local community member from Pari Island, and he's going to share his experience, Pak Sulaiman's experience, who is fighting for his land in Pari Island from mass tourism. Thank you so much, everyone.
Pak Sulaiman bisa
Pak Sulaiman, maybe join us.
Ya,
Pak Sule. Mr. Husen. Go ahead, Mr. Sulaiman. Pak Sule.
Terima kasih.
Thank you so much.
Malam untuk kita yang ada di Indonesia saat ini dan
all of us, especially those who are from Indonesia. Also, good afternoon to some of the participants here from other countries. First of all, I would like to apologize that I could not turn on my camera because of my stable connection, and the weather is not really good in my place. So I'm afraid that if I turn on my camera, the audio would be disrupted. Maybe I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Sulaiman, but people call me the Katur in Pari Island. Every day, I am a fisherman. So I go early in the morning and I go back home in the morning. I live in Pari Island since 1980s. I am currently 40 years old. My parents are native in Pari Island. My grandfather comes from Pari Island. They all live and die in Pari Island. Before everything happened, Pari Island was a really cool place. Although we cook food, firewood, electricity only available at night. So at 6 p.m. it's on, but at 6 a.m. turned off the electricity. But for us, it's it's something that's very enjoyable compared to now. So in the 1980s, our local economy really rising. It goes high based on our because of the seaweed cultivation that we have in our island. So as what I mentioned earlier, the cultivation zone that we have for seaweed has turned into a tourism area based on the special planning from the government. So because based on the cultivation zone, we receive so many advantage from it. So in 1998, Indonesia experienced a monetary crisis. Thankfully, fortunately, in Pulau Pari, the Pari Island, we were not impacted by those crises. So the price of the rice in the city, for example, price is really high. We're not really impacted by it because, as we all know, the seaweed in our island, we don't use dollar, so we are not really affected. Until in the year 2000, quality of our seaweed degraded, and it was caused by several factors. One of it is weather, climate change also affected also human change, human behavior. Seaweed completely destroyed the year 2000. A lot of fishermen suffered from malaria. Yeah. And a lot of them left the island to avoid disease. Thankfully, me and my family, we stayed in the island and we survived. There are a lot of people died in the island because of the malaria. So in 2000, it's like grave in Pari Island. A lot of people died. But sometimes at night, people shivered. It's really scary. So a lot of them also experienced high fever. So it's really scary that some of our neighbors died after the high fever. So after that, our economy is getting better because we, for some examples from other places that depends on tourism sector, for example, other communities that depends on tourism, we learn from them, and fortunately, it's very advantageous for us. But we have another problem. So in 2014, after everything is well from the tourism sector, there comes there comes 80 there exists 80 without us knowing. So in 2018, we formed the Pulau Pari forum. It's a forum for the struggle of the Pari Island. So I'm also involved in the work from JKPP. But we have another challenge. So there is this draft of government spatial planning, or in Indonesia we call it TWP3K. But based on the existing draft, we think that there is no real there is no real utilization zone, because we feel that the map made it look like that there are no people depends on the area that will utilize the area. It made it look like there are no fishermen depends on the area. So we decided to make our own contour mapping. We do our own contour So we draw zones. For the 80 certificates published by the BPN country, we countered by our participants and participatory methods. One of the way we try to enter is when the government have the very perform project. So we decided to use it as a way to propose our own map.
Harus ada alasannya, jadi kita menolak, tapi kita memberikan masukan atau memberikan usulan.
In order for us to reject a certain project or the draft of the special planning, we should have recommendation or suggestion on how we are going to make or how to map the cultivation zone based on our own collective decision. So there are LBH Jakarta, Walhi, Kiara. We did participatory mapping together, and we tried to make it official in the special map of the government. So fortunately, last year in 2021, the map got by the local government, but we have to have full supervision of it, because we still have no idea. There are still no certainties about what's going to happen in the future. There are a lot of stories about criminalization, but I think that's all my stories, what I experienced in Pari Island. Thank you so much for now. Good evening for everyone. Thank you, Pak Sule, for the sharing. I'm going to give the floor back to Bu Dewi. Thank you so much, Pak Husen,
dari JKPP,
Sulaiman, Husen, and Miss for sharing the fight, the struggle in Pulau Pari.
Next, we invite Sensa and Fidelma from Sperrin Mountains to share their stories with us.
Thank you, Tian, and thank you to our Indonesian friends for sharing that very inspirational story, and to Abil as well for the amazing translation. I know it's really tricky to do that, so thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to share a little bit about my contribution to the exhibition, which is based on research I'm doing at the minute with amazing community of people who are resisting gold mining in the Sperrin Mountains. And yeah, I'm going to pass over to Fidelma, who's with me today in a wee minute, but I just wanted to say a few words first about the research, and then I'll come back on and share some more reflections about community. So yeah, I guess in my research, I'm using the term frontline community, which I think is quite important because it implies that, you know, the community isn't just a passive victim in the situation, but they're actually, you know, mobilizing and resisting in really creative and amazing ways, and building community in really amazing ways. And I think that's what stands out to me most about what everything is happening in Sperrins, which is a really inspirational story as well. But yeah, I'm really delighted that Fidelma Okian is here with me today, who's an amazing land defender and a member of Save Our Sperrins, who's been resisting mining in the Sperrins for years, but also supporting other communities, frontline communities across the island of Ireland to resist mining as well. So I just wanted to invite Fidelma to share a little bit about a community declaration that folks in the Sperrins have come up with. And then I was just going to share after that some more reflections on community. So I'll pass to Fidelma if that's okay.
Thanks very much, Vicenza, and thank you to the previous speakers as well, Mohammed and Sulaiman. I mightn't be pronouncing the names right. So just a Canadian gold mining company called Dalradian came here actually 10 years ago, and they have applied for planning permission to build a gold mine and processing plant in the Sperrin Mountains. The Sperrin Mountains is an area of outstanding natural beauty. It's specially designated as such. So we oppose this plan because of the pollution and the lasting damage that gold mining will do to the water, the air, the land, and health. And it's not just our current existing generation, but for future generations, the damage will last forever. So no decision has been made by the government yet on whether to grant planning permission, but there are 38,000 objections to this plan. Part of Dalradian's plan is to build a waste mountain or a waste rock mountain across a road that is used by the local people. And it's all the contaminated stuff from the mine would be put into this waste dump. And the plan is that it will be 54 meters high, that is 17 stories. And the plan to site it across a road that is used by local people for generations. So they applied to the right department, the roads branch, to have this road abandoned, and the local people are opposing that. So last Easter Sunday, we decided to assert the rights of the community to use this road. And I will read to you the public notice that we placed at each end of the road and had a little ceremony. So it's called Assertion of Rights of Community. We, the people of the Sperrins, assert the right of the public to pass and repass along this road, just as our forefathers did for generations before us, and our descendants will continue to do for generations after us. People, nature, and ecosystems are all part of our community, including the mountains, hills, rivers, streams, wells, bogs, trees, sacred places, and all living therein. We, people and nature, are interdependent on each other. Our natural environment has the right to exist, thrive, regenerate, and to be protected. This road does not belong to the Department for Infrastructure Roads branch to give away to Dalradian or to any other. The people are custodians of this road for the children and future generations. We assert our rights to live in a healthy climate, to clean water, clean air, unpolluted land, and sustainable farming. We assert our right to make decisions about projects which affect these rights. Furthermore, it is the duty of us all to protect and defend the rights of our community. Asserted this day, the 3rd of April, 2021, by the people of the Sperrins. And we put some shamrocks on the bottom of the notices as an emblem of Ireland. So that's the notice.
Great. Thank you so much, Fidelma, for sharing that really powerful statement. I hope everyone enjoyed that as well. I love hearing it every time. So yeah, before we finish, I just wanted to share some reflections on community and what I tried to convey in the contribution to Despite Extractivism. Just some thoughts, and I'm looking forward to chat more with you all afterwards in a Q&A. But I guess whenever I was thinking about the research encounters and engaging with all of the amazing people who are resisting extractivism, the concept, it's an Irish concept of Anmehil sort of came to mind. And it's kind of an ancient word which means a system of cooperative labour, or sort of like labour teams that would have helped each other do agricultural tasks on neighbours' farms. But I think it's still very much alive today, the spirit of that word. And I think it means more than just helping each other with the agricultural tasks, but it's also about more like a spirit of reciprocity and a sort of collective effort for a greater good of the community. And I think that's really what sung out to me whenever I was able to spend time with people in the Sperrins and how they're doing amazing things to resist extractivist logics. And as well, I'm really inspired by all the communities across Ireland who are drawing on the narratives of rights of communities and the rights of nature. So it's about having autonomy, you know, for people and communities and the more than human world. And this idea of the rights of nature is being used really successfully by communities at the minute across Ireland who are passing motions through councils to get these rights kind of enshrined into local law, which I think is very exciting as well. And part of that, I guess, is the idea that I think Fidelma encapsulated so well, that we're trying to extend what is meant by community to include the more than human world. And in the counter map I made for this exhibition, I picked out this idea of the bog, which is a type of landscape where this giant waste dump would be put on top of in the Sperrin Mountains. And I suppose from colonial times, I suppose this area, like Ireland, is still dealing with sort of British colonial imaginations of the land. And in colonial times, the bog was very much labelled as an empty wasteland, as unproductive land, as just a kind of wilderness that wasn't any use to anybody. But I guess what the movement has taught me, and I've learned from them, is that the bog is a very important carbon sink. It's a very important diverse ecosystem, and it's also a living landscape as well. And as well, I think in this area, the strength of communities stands out, especially because the north of Ireland is a post-conflict society. And I know that all over the world, extractive industries try to, you know, divide and conquer and, you know, draw on the divisions within post-conflict societies. But I think what's really inspirational about the resistance is that it's built connections that are across community, across the traditional divides within our society here. And then finally, I just wanted to say that, of course, this is a community resistance very much rooted in place, but it also transcends place and is deeply connected to other frontline communities across Ireland and across the world. And reaching out to communities. Fidelma has done a great job, and Save Our Sperrins, with connecting with communities all over the world and building solidarity across difference. So yeah, those were just some reflections on community. And I think it's important to maybe share very specific accounts of what's happening on the ground, so that we move beyond the idea that communities are just victims or they're just saviors, because there's a lot of different things going on in different places. So that was just my thoughts on that. And before I finish, I was going to ask Fidelma if you had anything else you wanted to add that I might have missed in that.
No, I think you summed it up very well, Vicenza, and thank you. Vicenza has been very supportive to us, not only in the Sperrins, but as she said, throughout Ireland. The whole country has been offered by governments north and south as being open for business, open for mining business, and they go to a big conference in Toronto every year, and they offer incentives to mining companies to come to Ireland, tax incentives, and they reimburse them their exploration costs, etc. And they give them access to the maps of all the minerals and all that's available. And they really are selling off the country to mining companies, and it's happening throughout the whole country of Ireland.
Absolutely. Thanks, Fidelma. Yeah. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicenza and Fidelma, for the very empowering and touching sharing, and I've put the public notice in the chat. I hope you don't mind, Fidelma, because people are really interested to have it read of the beautiful and empowering words. For now, I'd like to invite, after these two moving stories from the communities far away, far apart in this very different world, I would like to invite comments, reflections from maybe, I don't know, Mai or Alice, maybe one of you, and then, or two of you, while we can I invite the audience, the participants, to also reflect and pause and think and offer your comments either in the chats or turn your microphone on after comments from Mai and Alice. Thank you.
Would we have answer and question first, Dian? Because there is a lot of question in the chat.
We have, I think I can collect the questions and then you can have your quick comments or reflection, probably, Mai.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 minutes, if that's all right.
Yeah. So we are first. Alice, do you want to?
Oh yeah, thank you everyone for sharing those stories, which are so different but have something in common as well. I think that's what's fascinating about not only the stories but that idea of counter mapping and taking the map, which is such an extractive technology, that's that piece of paper that's been used for centuries to mark the fact that extraction can or should happen somewhere, making the earth knowable in a certain way, and in doing so erasing other ways of other sort of relations that are happening there, whether it's between the communities, between the people, or between community, if we think of it in this sort of more than human way, also in relation to the fisheries or the bogs or whatever it is, and how that is so erased by extractivism, but really articulated so beautifully in these such different mapping projects. So I'd really encourage everyone actually to have a look at them in the exhibition and reflect on those, and the way that the JKPP community map is still sort of in the register of official mapping. It looks very, very accurate, and then we've got the Trenza and the community map, which is a more artistic communication, but both of them share this alternative way of claim making and bringing community into a more tangible sense of being. So thank you for sharing that. I don't know if you wanted to share anything, Mai.
Ya, terima kasih kawan-kawan JKPP dan Vicenza serta Fidelma.
Thank you so much for
ada kemiripan karakter ekstraktivisme, baik
I think there are similarities
yang lain yang saya pelajari, misalnya tambang, tetapi juga
for example the one that I learned mining sector.
Turis. Jadi
also
apapun sektornya dia punya karakter menguasai skala besar.
What is the sector? It has this common characteristic of
territorial control yang dilakukan pada tambang emas.
There's also the similarities is also the territorial
bagaimana pemerintah mengeluarkan regulasi
mining and tourism area in which
menguasai zona-zona yang itu
regulations
tumpang tindih dengan ruang hidup masyarakat.
Which leads to overlapping.
Tapi yang menarik sebenarnya dari counter mapping tadi adalah yang disebutkan oleh Vicenza tentang bagaimana ini membuat menjadi beyond community itself. Jadi lebih dari sekedar hubungan dengan komunitas itu dan ruang hidupnya.
A relation that
dengan solidaritas, baik solidaritas antar komunitas, antar pulau. Dalam kasus Pulau Pari, dia bahkan dari pulau-pulau lain anggota JKPP, karena JKPP
from other island
itu juga mendukung dan jaringan nasional.
Other island in the national network, for example, the Pari Island network
di Irlandia tentang saat ada statement dari masyarakat untuk membutuhkan dukungan
NGOs and
perjuangan
communities,
mereka,
they build solidarity.
Counter mapping ini melampaui masyarakat
in
itu
Ireland.
sendiri.
So I think counter mapping goes beyond the community in the place itself, but also it connects to the people outside of the area. So I think this is what exactly despite extractivism now.
Terima kasih.
I'm sorry, I think yes. Okay, now I'm going to go through the chats, and we have question from Marlene to Husen to JKPP asking about tentang alat apa yang digunakan
which tools did JKPP and the community use to gather data through the participatory mapping. Mr. Husen, would you like to answer the question? Yeah, I've read the question from Mary. So, in regards to the question being asked, basically, the process in participatory mapping, first of all, is the socialization with the local community. We conversate with the people until there comes the idea for a participatory mapping. So it's the people who took the lead to do that. So when the people are already, they have the initiative to do that, we do FGD, the forum group discussion, in which we have 2 FGDs. The first one is the FGD where we share about our goals, our mission, the output that we aim to have from the mapping, and the data gathering is done by the local community. We use several tools. The one that is commonly used is GPS, and also high resolution satellite. The satellite image, high resolution satellite image, we also use that. And also the newest one, we use drone to do participatory mapping in Pari Island. And also, based on those things, we also made the sketch of the map. So first, the people of the local communities are being asked to make the sketch of the map, and we draw the sketch based on the field data, the data that we collect on the field, like the GPS data, the satellite image. So, and the second step, we also did the identification and the elimination of information and data by the people. Other than that, after the map is done, we collect the information, and from that we got participatory mapping. It's not only spatial map, but also historical map. It's also a cultural map. So it's a very diverse kinds of maps that we got from the participatory mapping. It's not only spatial. Currently, we have a wide range of options of technology that is getting advanced day and day. So we are trying to take advantage of it, of the technological advance, but we also have to always communicate with the people on the ground. So we both have mutual consent to use it. We have a collective decision to use it in order for the process to be finished faster. That's why it's important to always communicate with the people. And also the question about the duration of the data gathering, it really depends on the situation on the ground. For example, when it rains, it indirectly inhibit the data gathering process. In some cases, it took months only for the data gathering. In 2017, we started to do the mapping. When the special map planning from the government is out, we did the participatory mapping again. So we redid it again. But yeah, that's how we do it. The process is very long.
With the community, I think that answer and that explanation actually also touch on a little bit on the questions raised by Oana. Maybe Vicenza or Fidelma, do you want to answer a question from Oana? It's in the chat. Do you want me to read it, or you can?
Yeah, I see it there. I can say a few words, and then if Fidelma wants to say anything as well. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I guess I'm very conscious as well how academic research can sometimes be a form of extractivism in itself, you know, where we might go into communities and extract knowledge and take it back to universities and use that to advance, you know, our careers or whatever. So I wanted to try and think about how yeah, research could be participatory. So I used a tool called Photo Voice, where we had workshops where participants were able to share photos of their experiences of resistance. And then we sort of grouped them into themes and had discussions around them. And so the map that I made is very much based on those discussions, and also trying to engage as an activist as well in the whole movement. And also I'm trying to use this idea of walking with as methodology as well, because I've had really the joy of being able to walk through the landscape of the Sperrins and at marches and in loads of different ways as an embodied experience with the people resisting. So all of that kind of sort of knowledge and experiences kind of went into this map that I tried to make. And I suppose it's not as technical as the map from Indonesia. I guess counter mapping can be done in lots of different ways, but I guess it's meant to be more than representational in a way, because it's more about how mapping is about stories and about yeah, walking and ancestral knowledge and sharing experiences and things that can't be put onto a physical piece of paper as well. So yeah, that's what I tried to convey with that, and yeah, try to think about research relationships of care as well. And yeah, as well, like there's a huge amount of care that participants like Fidelma showed to me as well, and I want to acknowledge that as well in my work by like sharing their time with me and their stories and making cups of tea and sharing chats with me, which I've really enjoyed as well. So I don't know if Fidelma wants to say anything on
that. No, again, Vicenza, you have said, but I just would add that, yeah, it took over time, but Vicenza has such a nice, gentle personality, and she never forced herself on us, and she was very patient, you know, with us as well. And the other thing I liked was she wasn't just like doing external like research, but she became a participant as well, and she got involved with us. And she's an artist as well, and involved herself when we were making banners, and taught us so many things, and went with us to London when we went over to deliver a letter to the British Prime Minister and to picket a few places, the Mines and Money Conference and the Orient Mine Finance, and so she actively joined in, and again, as I say, her gentle personality and her readiness and her patience, all has endeared her to us, and she became, part of our group, and that, and as she said, endless cups of tea, and that. But she's also a good cook as well, and she would bring us, buns or some nice desserts.
Thank you so much, Vicenza and Fidelma, for the response. Lovely to hear about being a good cooks. What a lovely community, I imagine. And we have one last question from Eka Puspitasari, and the questions on the community become community, especially when there is operations, and it's directed to Mai. Mai, do you want to quickly answer the question before I give the floor to Becky to close the meeting? Oh, and I'm sorry, we're supposed to end in 1 minute, but I'd like to ask permission to extend for 5 minutes. So we'll be finishing in 8:35 p.m. my time, or 1:35 in your time. Thank you. Please, Mai.
Ya, Dian. Jadi sebenarnya masyarakat di Indonesia itu, terutama masyarakat adat, dia punya semacam jaring pengaman atau skema dalam menghadapi perubahan-perubahan yang terjadi. Misalnya berkaitan dengan contoh ya, sasi misalnya. Itu tidak hanya sasi di masyarakat Maluku, itu tidak hanya kesepakatan untuk menangkap ikan misalnya ya dalam waktu tertentu, tapi karena itu untuk keberlanjutan hidup. Atau keputusan-keputusan dalam organisasi masyarakat adat untuk menentukan sesuatu misalnya, maka dilakukan bersama-sama. Tapi saat perubahan-perubahan tekanannya itu berubah menjadi sangat tinggi, dan juga intensitasnya cepat, dan jangan lupa ini juga overlap dengan saat kawasan itu rusak, maka ada tekanan lain, kerusakan alam yang juga menambah tekanannya, misalnya banjir, atau hal bencana lainnya. Ya. Jadi sistem pengaman masyarakat menjadi tidak mampu untuk menangani. Jadi termasuk intervensi terhadap sistem lokal mereka yang dilakukan oleh pemerintah atau pihak luar lainnya.
Protecting the local values from.
Jadi itu, apakah solidaritas itu tetap eksis? Beberapa eksis, beberapa tidak. Biasanya itu eksis jika transformasi dari perlawanan kemudian menjadi bagaimana mengubah sistem keamanan sosial dengan berkolaborasi dengan pihak lain, misalnya, yang semula hanya solidaritas untuk melawan, yang kemudian bertransformasi menjadi solidaritas untuk memulihkan. Jadi sangat mungkin mentransformasi solidaritas itu menjadi solidaritas untuk memulihkan, misalnya, contohnya di kawasan Molo yang semula melawan tambang marmer, kemudian bertransformasi solidaritas mendukung bagaimana mengembangkan tenun sama masyarakat. yang
it
semula
becomes a
tenun itu
solidarity
menjadi alat
to build
perempuan untuk memblokade
platform, safe space for women or the people, local community, especially women, to heal.
Saya rasa itu, Dian.
I think
Semoga
that's
cukup menjawab, Kak, Dian.
my answer. I hope it answers the question.
I think we should ask the questions to Eka if it's answer her questions, but hopefully yes. I'm sorry that we are running out of time. We have one last questions from Hilma Savitri before I hand over to Becky to explain about our next event and to give a short reflections. Maybe I would ask Dewi Sutejo, would you mind to answer quickly question from Hilma, like 1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah. What kind of? Mbak Hilma asked about how does the extractivism discourse influence the method of community mapping? Yeah, it's hard question because actually JKPP also learned from the experience and also develop the methodology itself. I don't know this is answer your question or no, but somehow JKPP not only use the community mapping method only, we also develop like participatory mapping, land use planning, sustainable land use planning, how to develop the more operational method to cover what the implication or anything about the will happen with the extractivism.
Thank you so much, Dewi. We are having 1 more minute from my promise to finish at 8:35. Vincenza and Fidelma, sorry not to give you time to answer this, but if you don't mind and if you could you please respond it in the chat only if you're okay with that. And I will give the very last piece of time to Becky to invite her for some reflection and to explain a little bit about our next WorldLink event. Please, Becky.
Thank you so much, Diane. And rather than reflect, I just want to say a very big thank you to everybody who's joined us today, and particularly to the speakers for sharing those really important, insightful, empowering insights about community and the work that you're doing on behalf of all of us, on behalf of the world, really, for standing up to extractivism in various ways. So I want to thank you for that and for the care that you do that you exhibit in doing this. And one of the things I think that's really struck me about this conversation is how by linking these stories together, we learn so much that inspires. And I'm really grateful, particularly to Abil for the translation. This is such a difficult task, and I think it really helps us try and sort of work and converse across different worlds. And that brings me to kind of introduce really what we're doing next week. So next week's webinar, we are turning our attention to worlding, and the word really it's a word that's used to sort of think about how we might talk across different ways of knowing and relating to the world. And so some of those themes actually we've picked up on a little bit today. So we want to kind of go a little bit further with that in the next webinar. It will be at the same time next week and online again. And we hopefully by then will have ironed out some of those technical problems that held us up a little bit today. So thank you so much for your patience with that. I'm really looking forward to hearing or to sharing some more next week with the Worlding webinar, where we'll be thinking a little bit about how we relate and act otherwise in different ways and through different registers. So please do join us if you possibly can. It's so nice to see so many people from all over the world, and terima kasih banyak for all the friends from Indonesia as well for joining us. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a lovely evening, afternoon.
Terima kasih banyak semuanya. Selamat malam, selamat siang. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And please also do keep in touch with us. Alice has put the email in the chat. So terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone.
Abil, makasih Abil.
Bye.
Ada yang bisa taruh email kita di chat biar bisa
Sudah tadi.
Baik, terima kasih banyak semuanya. Terima kasih dan mohon maaf lahir batin atas. Thank you so much and we are sorry for the.
Terima kasih semuanya, izin live duluan.
Baik, terima kasih
banyak Pak Sulaiman.
Ya.
Terima kasih.
Ya. Budi udah ya? Boleh live semua?
Udah baik. Terima kasih banyak Bu Uli.
Terima kasih ya.
Kami nggak enak mau live duluan kan kami.